Welcome to Albright's Fashion Discovery Series. My name is Doreen Berdowski, and I have the honor of being the chair of the Fashion Department at Albright College. This event is a collaboration with our Center for the Arts, our admissions department, and also the Fashion Department at Albright. The real focus of this series is to educate current and prospective students on career possibilities in the fashion industry. Our speaker tonight is Kyle Bredbenner. Kyle is the Senior Visual Merchandising Manager for Swarovski North America. He managed visual merchandising initiatives throughout multiple channels of distribution, including retail, wholesale, national accounts, military, and travel retail. And prior to Swarovski, Kyle was the Global Visual Merchandising Manager for DKNY, overseeing both North America and European clusters. Kyle has been involved in branding, visual merchandising, and store design for Disney stores and Bath & Body Works. And throughout his career, he's created unique and dynamic shopping environments with an omni-channel approach to elevate the client experiences through store design, prop design, sourcing, window displays, music design, graphics, and marketing development. And we're proud to say Kyle graduated from Albright in 2009 with a degree in fashion merchandising. He was actively involved in a lot of things at Albright College, which I'm sure will come out during this session. So with that, I'm going to turn everything over to you, Kyle. You want to tell us what you're doing and how you got there?
Awesome, yeah. Thank you, Doreen, for the introduction. So as Doreen mentioned, I graduated from Albright in 2009. I'm originally from Wyomissing, Pennsylvania, so Albright has always been right there in my backyard. And born and raised in PA, so very exciting to have gone to Albright. I currently live in Los Angeles, California right now, but in between Pennsylvania and LA, I also lived in New York and some other northern states up there as well, kind of throughout. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of the story of how I got to be the Senior Visual Merchandising Manager of Swarovski. I definitely came out of college at a difficult time. Yes. With the recession of 2009. And so as a result of that, there weren't a lot of fashion companies that were hiring. There weren't a ton of job opportunities necessarily directly related to what I wanted to do, which was visual merchandising. So I actually started my career by going into retail management. And I started as assistant managers at Bath & Body Works and Disney, and then I worked up to store manager at Disney stores as well. And in between that as well, I took the opportunity while I was working for those companies to do as much VM, visual merchandising, as possible. So I made sure that I did new store openings, I made sure that I was always doing floor sets, et cetera. And one of the things that helped me there is I actually, with Disney, was able to work with their store design team and actually came up with some of the store designs that you can currently see out there right now. So as an example, I actually was on the team that helped to develop the Times Square Disney store design, which was a lot of fun and really able to bring in a lot of things that I learned in college. And even in some of the projects that we'd done in college, I was able to kind of pull some inspiration from that. Like in my senior class with Doreen, we had to do research on upcoming technology and help to understand any new age technology at the time, I guess is the way to say it. And one of the articles that I found was for a device called the Magic Mirror, where it included RFID chips, and when you walked in front of it, a certain product would appear on the screen. So I actually took that exact technology, translated it into Disney stores to where we used RFID chips to attach to product, that when the little girl's trying on the Cinderella dress, the Magic Mirror would pop up with Cinderella on it and bring the story to life for the customers. So really being able to create that storytelling and using technology, and interestingly enough, using information that I had researched in college was really beneficial there. So being able to work out through the store side and being able to help them on the store design side, understanding how the guests and the customers really interacted with the product was really so valuable in my career as a whole, because it helped me to not only get my foot in the door by doing more store design and doing more of the, we did some editor fashion shows and things like that in New York City with Disney as well. So kind of being able to get my foot in the door there, but also really just getting some ground level understanding of how customers react and interact with store design really helped to kind of catapult my career to the next level. And then so after Disney and Bath & Body Works, I actually went on to DKNY down in Karen, New York. And with them, I moved around a lot for them in the beginning. So I started with them in Pennsylvania, moved to Connecticut, then Long Island, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and then finally ending up in New York City, which was really great. Again, being able to understand different markets and understanding that not every market is definitely the same, even if you're in the Northeast, understanding that the Rhode Island, Massachusetts customer is a little different than the Connecticut customer and a little different than Pennsylvania, New York, et cetera. Trying to get that kind of well-rounded understanding was really great. Helped me to really move into my role at corporate for DKNY, overseeing a global brand. So with DK, I was overseeing all of North America and then the European cluster. So I was doing store design, visual merchandising, also helping with product development and helping to pick some of the new lines and making sure that the product married well in the presentations to the existing product that was going forward, et cetera. Which was really great experience, and really being able to understand different markets globally was really great. So I was with the team when we expanded into our first Canadian stores. I also helped us to move into different locations in Germany, which was the first time that we had really gotten into that area while I was with the company. And being able to do store design and merchandising on that level was definitely a good experience to understand some of the global impacts you have as a company and really help you to understand how to bring some of those bigger ideas more localized as well. And with DKNY, we also, at the time, we were owned by LVMH, so Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. So that also helped a lot, being able to bring more of the luxury understanding from the LV house into the New York brand was definitely an interesting take as well. So I was with Bath & Body Works for 5 years, Disney for 6 years, DKNY for 7 years, and now I've been with Swarovski for 3 years. Maybe we'll get to the 8 year just so I can kind of have the sequential. We'll see what happens here. But so I've been with Swarovski for 3 years now. I actually was presented the job from one of my old coworkers from DKNY who was still in New York at the time. So she kind of helped me to get my foot in the door here. And the difference kind of with what I do at Swarovski is it's similar but different, right? So I'm still doing visual merchandising, store design, but instead of it being necessarily minor channels, but on a global level, now I'm doing multiple channels across North America. So as Doreen mentioned, I oversee all of our specialty retail or boutique stores, which are company owned, as well as licensed boutiques, as well as multi-brand accounts, which are jewelry stores that may carry Pandora, us, and local jewelry companies, et cetera, and national accounts like Macy's and Nordstrom's, and then also travel retail, which is like your cruise ships and military bases. So it's a very well-rounded portfolio that we have that we're overseeing, and definitely a different way of looking at merchandising, because when you're looking at merchandising across different countries, it's a little bit of a different take on it. And then when you look at merchandising across different channels of distribution, it definitely challenges you to think a little bit more outside the box about how to really bring the branding to life within other companies' branding. So taking the Swarovski brand and making sure that we are bringing it to life and storytelling to the best of our ability within a Macy's, and still holding their branding and their integrity of their product as well, and making sure that we don't look like we're kind of just sticking out like a sore thumb. It's a different way of thinking about things, and working with different owners of brands who license our name is definitely a different take on things as well, and gives you a different opportunity to understand from a branding perspective how to really expand the brand and uphold the integrity of the brand, but in all these different channels. So that's kind of my overarching elevator pitch of my career. You know, I think some of the things that have really helped me tremendously, as Doreen had mentioned, from Albright, is that I was really actively involved on campus. So I was student government president. Before that, I was student government treasurer. I was class president, I'm sorry, for my class for freshman and sophomore, I believe it was. I was in a fraternity and a vice president of my fraternity. I was also the philanthropy chair of our fraternity, so really getting to kind of have that well-rounded experience at Albright. I also did POPs. I was an Albright ambassador at one point. I did I was in the ads that were in newspapers locally. I don't remember what we called that, sorry, but I was a face of Albright, I think is what we called it, sorry. And so I was in advertisements for that, and I feel like there was a lot of other things I was involved in, but I feel like that's a pretty good start. You know, and having that experience from a lot of the activities I did really helped when I got the workforce as well. So being SGA president and being involved in trustee committee meetings and being able to manage our accounts and being able to balance the overall budgets of the student government and of the different on-campus activities was really a great experience to be able to get ready for what I do now too. Being able to balance budgets is a huge part of our jobs at all times, and being able to be profitable and being able to really look at things from a global perspective and from a strategic planning perspective. And I can honestly say that SGA and those experiences helped me a lot to be able to understand that, as well as being able to speak in front of large groups and being able to interact with people that are on the board, as well as like the larger committees, and meeting with the president of the college on a weekly basis and things like that. It's definitely prepared me a lot to be able to go into boardrooms and have conversations with the CEOs and the presidents of the companies that I worked for. And I think that's a really great experience. I think one of the really cool things about Albright is that by having a well-rounded education both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, it really does challenge you to have a different way of thinking and really like use the tools that Albright has provided you to get out there and think about things in a different way. And for me personally, like I said, I've been able to take a lot of those experiences and really inject them into my career. And it's really helped me. Like, I know it's corny, a different way of thinking. Like, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but truthfully, like, it really has helped me to have a different way of thinking and look at things from different perspectives. And being able to take a problem that may look like it's so on the surface simple, like how to visually merchandise something. It may look simple, but being able to look at it from different perspectives and being able to take the things I learned at Albright and kind of inject them into it has been really valuable for me as well. And for me, at Albright, like one of my things that is interesting is I actually didn't start in fashion. I started in education and psychology. And so for my first 2 years, I was in elementary education, child and family psychology, and went through a lot of my psych classes and a lot of those core classes. And then I just fell in love with VM and the fashion department. And so I remember sitting down with Doreen and switching and being like, okay, what can transfer over from the things that I've taken into the fashion department? And she was really helpful in making sure that everything that I did take, how we could find a home for it in my requirements. And truthfully, my psychology and education like background there actually has really helped me a lot in fashion as well. Understanding the psychology of why people buy, or understanding the psychology of even the way that people enter a store. So understanding that psychologically people in the United States tend to go towards the right when they walk into the store. Rules of right? You want the customer to come to the store on the right, focus on the product that's most focal over there, but then flip that on its head. And when you go over to Europe, those customers tend to go to the left because they drive on the left side of the road, they walk on the left side of the street. So understanding the psychology of that really helped a lot when kind of bringing it into the fashion industry. And then from the education classes I took, that actually really helped as well, because in every role that I've had to do trainings and product knowledge and development of training courses for each company that I've worked for, or training initiatives that we've done. So understanding how to educate others has been really influential as well. But that's definitely kind of my different path, was kind of starting in education and psychology and moving into fashion and really falling in love with it and getting through those last 2 years in all fashion courses, which was really enjoyable. Did any questions come up yet, Doreen?
No, but let me just ask you, because Sure. There are a lot of students who are interested in visual merchandising. What is visual merchandising? And maybe you can get into what you do on a daily basis. So if someone's interested in visual merchandising, they generally like to dress mannequins.
Okay.
You know, so can you speak to some of the things that you actually do as a visual merchandising manager?
Sure. So visual is a lot more than just making things look pretty. I think that's a lot of time. There's a lot of analyzation, there's a lot of research that you have to do when you're working on the overall VM. So for example, for my role, we will look at upcoming seasons, and right now I do most of our VM is about 6 months in advance. So we get the line sheets of all the product, we get images of what the product's gonna look like, we get information about kind of what it's meant to be grouped with as far as like similar sensibilities and similar product categories and things like that. So we take that line sheet, we then go through and analyze it and figure out what the next season is gonna be from a placement standpoint, and then we go through and prioritize with the planning and merchandising teams. So the planning teams, they get provided whatever the buy is from the merchandising team. So the merchandising team will say, hey, this is the product that we're gonna have. Planning team will say, okay, now I took that product, now I need to figure out how to make the amount of sales that we need for a company as a whole from the merch team's line sheets. And then they give us that information and say, here's all the product that the stores are gonna have. Here's the units of it that they're gonna have. These are the things that we invested in heavily from a sales perspective. We expect this to be higher sales. We expect this to be more secondary, or we get given also breakdowns into, as an example, if you're an Asian tourist kind of grouping, you'll get different product categories that really pertain more to that group of tourists. Or if you are an area like LA, as an example, where you have more red carpet events, you'll get more of a red carpet feel for a lot of the product that you have. So once we understand the entire product category, once we understand all the offering, once we understand what the actual buy is behind it and the unit buy behind it and what the investments are going to be, then from a VM perspective, we can take that and really focus our attention on each of those product families, and then work on what the actual VM side of things are going to be. So we will go through and prioritize placement based on that information. We'll also go through and prioritize any window or feature presentations in the store. So we call it our feature vitrine right now. It's like our front entrance fixture that shows the most focal product for the current season. Then we identify which ones we see as priorities for Valentine's Day versus spring versus Mother's Day versus summer versus any other like secondary activation that we have, like Chinese New Year or anything like that. we go through, figure out all that, and then once we know the product, once we know where it's going to be placed, we know what the priorities are, then we can look at developing an actual story behind it, and how as a generic statement, at Valentine's Day, it's hearts, right? So you go through and you start developing that, but then you also base it on the product offering and see how the new product offering that's vocal for that time makes sense to create a whole presentation in there. And then from there, there's other parts of it that we do, like prop development. We go through and we develop the graphics in the store. So since we're from a global perspective, we take information that's provided to us from our central team in Austria, and then we figure out how to adapt that into the local markets. And that includes being able to do different like fabric lightbox posters, or different window claim stickers, or additional installations that we do. It definitely varies based on the channel of distribution, and it varies based on the season, but we definitely are able to take kind of whatever the global initiatives are and also translate that into local activations as well. So some examples of that might be, in the LA market, we are very red carpet heavy. Like during award season, we have a ton of red carpet. So how do we bring in the red carpet mentality into our stores? And so sometimes we'll do big installations of crystal curtains throughout the store, or we might have huge red carpets rolled out that show off the new line that's for carpet season. And for my current role, especially since we're in LA, my office also oversees everything that has to do with the Oscars. So we actually design the Oscars stage every year. So when you look at the crystal stage behind the presenters every year, that's something that Swarovski does every year since I think it's been 20 years now. And so we're involved in that, and we bring that to life as well in our stores and help to marry back some of the connection there. We also work with a lot of designers and a lot of costume designers as well, and Swarovski is very heavily involved in costume design for a lot of movies. So most recent examples are, we did all of the costume jewelry for The Crown for the last 2 seasons. We just did, but we did Rocket Man and the costumes for that. So when he has the Dodgers Stadium outfit on and he gets up on the piano and hits the ball out of the park, like we have that. And so, part of my job is to figure out how to bring that into stores as well, to bring those stories to life. So bringing that costume into our store at Century City in LA, for example, to show off that we have that connection to the movie industry as well. We also have done a lot of other movies. We were the necklace in Audrey Hepburn and Breakfast at Tiffany's. We did Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. We've done Bohemian Rhapsody, just to give some examples of it. So kind of bringing that story and history to life as well in our stores is really important, especially in my area out here. So we also, as just kind of back to the question of what else we do. So that's a lot of the things that we also have to worry about as well, is how we bring branding to life and how we make connections, especially with all of the different channels that Swarovski works with, and making sure that the brand integrity is upheld and that there's a connection between what the outside world sees us as and kind of what our stores do as well.
So can I interrupt you for a second, yeah. Kyle? So you are at the top and you're providing the big picture and you're determining the big picture, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. But you obviously don't run around to every store to execute that.
No, not at all.
So how does that work? Like once the ideas are developed, how do you communicate that? And what happens at the store level?
Yep. So once we have all the information, once we figured out what we're doing, we have also photos of each shelf, of each showcase, of each presentation, et cetera. We take all of that and then we filter it into a VM presentation guideline. So really important to understand Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator in my world, definitely. I use all three on a daily basis. So if you have an opportunity to take those courses and you're interested in VM, definitely do that. It's very important to understand all those. So once we get and part of the importance of that, like I said, we do everything kind of 6 months in advance. So what we're doing today may change a little bit 5-6 months down the road. Product assortments, levels, et cetera, might change. So understanding that we've taken the photos and then now we might have to Photoshop them in 4 months, like understanding that from the start really helps you to understand how to like do your presentations so that when you are Photoshopping, it's easier on you. And so we take the photos, we take InDesign, and we go through and develop a booklet basically and include all information in there. So really understanding communications and understanding how to format a book so that it's easily read, even if there's not a lot of text, is very, very important. You know, one of the main things in visual merchandising is that eye appeal is by appeal, right? Like if you see it one way, you're going to want to buy it. It's the first thing that the customer sees, and you want them to buy it naturally. So things should be very subtle and very, it shouldn't be so difficult for the customer to understand your intention. So if we're building a book and we have to write a lot of text to explain why I merchandise something a certain way, you've totally missed the point. So being able to take all the information, convey it in a visual presentation, and then give it in a very condensed format of text and clear text is really important. So we take every season and develop the guidelines for every channel that I mentioned to you guys earlier that we oversee, and we produce a guideline about once a month or once every 6 weeks, depending on the time frame. We then print that off, send it off to all the stores. They get their collateral, all the imagery, all the props, everything like that we do for a season. They get all of that, and then the store teams are required to set them. To prepare the store teams, I have actually been to almost every store in the Western region of the United States. So I've been able to go and do trainings with every store, and I do conference calls with the entire store clusters as a whole. So our full margin stores is one cluster, outlets is another, licensed boutiques, et cetera. And then we'll do a call with them, talk them through the initiatives, talk them through the plan. If there's things that need to change or you need to supplement product or anything like that, we talk through all that stuff. And then they go off and execute, and then they send me photos. I check the photos, review them, and send back additional information on feedback. But that is definitely where the training initiatives come into play, because the better you train everyone else to do what you need them to in the field, the less things come back wrong. Did that answer your question? Sorry.
That did. I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions for Kyle, you can put them in chat. I do have, so if someone wanted to start in visual merchandising, how would they do that? I know that you had an internship, right?
I did an internship with, I did it with Disney at the time, I believe was when we did the store design stuff with them. That was part of my internships as well. Part of it with me was, I didn't go to New York and do an internship at the time because I actually, I had all throughout college, I also had 2 part-time jobs I was working or more depending on the time of year. So I was really working on that side of things and making sure that I got my foot in the door on that side more. But internships are really important. I mean, I can tell you from my experience on this side of things, I've in my span of my career, I've hired 3 of our interns to be full-time positions in the visual merchandising department. So I know that it's really important to definitely get out there and get the experience and definitely work with the different departments. I think I would also say it's all about who you know, but it's not necessarily that you have to know like the CEO of a company to get a job there, okay? Like you definitely want to make connections, and when you're interning or when you're even doing day visits at different companies or different areas or whatever, you just want to get to know as many people as possible and like be friendly with as many people as possible. You never know when you're going to wind up at the same company with people that you met randomly at a school trip or I can tell you from experience that I've worked with a lot of the same people over and over again in different companies, or you interact with a lot of the same people over and over again. So it's really important to maintain those relationships. Like when I came to Swarovski, the girl that recruited me was from DKNY, and then one of the senior most people at the company was also from DKNY, and her and I worked together on the men's team at DKNY very closely, developing some of the products. So like her and I had like an immediate connection, and it really helped to just catapult me into my job. So I think it's really important to make sure that you are friendly with as many people as possible. And you never know where those connections might take you as well. You know, moving from New York to LA, I thought, you know, I'm going to lose a lot of my connections in New York. As it turns out, a handful of my connections in New York actually moved to LA. And so my president of at DKNY, the president of sales, actually lives not that far from me now. Like, so he and I have a really good relationship. We've met up a few times, we talk all the time, etc. One of my other good friends now works for Apple up north in Northern California. It's like you never really know where people are going to go, but you can expect to always interact with some of them at some point here. So kind of keeping those connections. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't have to be the president. It doesn't have to be the VP or anything like that. It could be someone in the mailroom that you end up working with 3 years down the road, and they're senior to you. It happens all the time. So it's important to maintain relationships and really keep that networking at all times.
Thanks, Kyle. And I just want to make a plug. You mentioned a lot of the software earlier, and we start students in freshman year in a 100-level course learning Adobe Illustrator, and then each year after that, there is a class that helps improve those skills. And I'm not sure if that was in place when you were actually at Albright, but it is worked into the curriculum. So you learn Adobe Illustrator, you learn Photoshop, you learn InDesign. So all of those programs are something that our students graduate with experience in.
Yeah,
so
we had a little bit of experience with it in Connie's classes with Illustrator, but I think the main things that I took were, I took a digital class. I can't remember the professor's name at this point, but it was a secondary class that fulfilled a different requirement, and it was all about InDesign and Photoshop, and that's where I learned a lot of it. So I'm glad they do that. That's awesome.
Art 265, I can tell you the course because we recommended it. Anyway, there is a question here.
Sure.
We have someone asking, what do you look for in an internship portfolio or resume? You mentioned that you actually hired some interns. What do you look for in a portfolio or resume?
So I think a lot of what I look for is a well-rounded experience and a different take on things. So I'm not always looking for, you know, someone that necessarily had like a clear-cut path to where they are. You know, one of the women that was originally my intern and then had become one of the VM team, she had her degree in communications, and we felt like that was kind of a really good opportunity in the department to kind of bring in someone from that standpoint that could write copy, that could work on the directives more and things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a very clear cut kind of side of things, but I think when I'm looking at things, I want someone that's really well-rounded and also someone that can present themselves well, both on paper and or in a portfolio if you're providing a portfolio. And I mean, I look at the design of the resumes as well. If it's not clear cut, if there's spelling errors, if there's language discrepancies, things like that, I definitely look at that because that to me shows your attention to detail. And in VM, it's all about attention to detail. So making sure that kind of those little things are definitely perfected as much as possible. And then from like the interview standpoint, I think the biggest thing that I look for is the enthusiasm. It's the understanding of the brand. It's understanding what we do a little bit as well. So when you go in for interviews for anything, whether it's an internship or any other job, make sure you did your homework, make sure you know who you're talking to, make sure that you understand what they do and understand what you're really getting into. There's a lot of times that people come into companies thinking, visual merchandising and merchandising are the same thing, and they're not. So that's definitely something that, like, I know we've had things like that happen to us all the time. Someone coming actually looking for like more of a merchandising job instead of VM. So it's important to kind of understand what you're looking at. I would also say when you get postings for internships or even jobs in general, the job profiles that are posted on the company's website or that you see on their website, go through it and really read through with a fine-tooth comb and mirror back the language that they're speaking to you in. So understand the language that they're using and make sure that it's mirrored back in the way that you're presenting it in your resume as well. And it doesn't necessarily, I know when you're looking at internships, a lot of times you don't have a ton of experience, and that's cool, that's fine. Just make sure that you can articulate what you have done and how that will help you to be an asset to the company, because that's really what we're looking at. We're not expecting you to necessarily have, you know, a laundry list of all these things that you've done while you're in college, while you're doing all well, maybe not right now on campus activities, but in general activities. But we are looking at kind of how you're presenting it and how you are articulating it in the same way that we have it articulated in the job description.
I'm hearing something in the background.
Yeah. What was like outside? Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. So also, in terms of internships, how should students approach looking for an internship? I know students look for ads, internship ads, someone looking for an intern. Do you have any advice on students and how to get an internship?
So I think there are a lot of different ways to approach internships. I think the main thing for me, at least I think of it the same way as you're looking for another job. Or for a job, sorry. I think the main thing that you should start with is finding companies that you have similarities with, or that you have an understanding of their culture, and start there. So I can tell you, you know, when I was originally applying for companies, like the first thing I did was I just wrote down every fashion brand that I knew. And I was like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna apply everywhere. And then I was like, oh, but the more I got out there and the more I interviewed and the more I really understood it, the more I understood that the culture is probably one of the most important things for you when you're looking at an internship or at jobs as a whole. And a lot of that can be conveyed in a company's website in their mission statement. It can be conveyed in their Glassdoor reviews. It can be, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can see that information. And when you're reading it, if you read something that sounds really generic in their mission statement or in their purpose statements, whichever way it is, it sounds really generic, they don't really know what their mission is. If it sounds really specific and it sounds like it's something that aligns with your goals and aligns with your belief system, your culture, then it makes sense to kind of explore that. And I can say that's where I suggest starting. Look at companies that make sense, look at their culture, look at their brand statements, etc. Then start looking through their online postings. A lot of times it's not always posted that someone's going to have an internship or that one's available. Sometimes it is about kind of who you've networked with. So go on to LinkedIn, see how you have connections with people, see if there's someone who knows someone who knows someone who can connect you with them. I mean, as an example, when I was going to DKNY, I actually reached out to Kelly Byrne, who was a classmate of mine at Albright, and she had internship with them. And I just said, I was like, look, like, do you know anyone? Do you know? And she's like, oh yeah, of course. Like, I'll give you like 3 names of people that you can talk to about it. And like, understanding that she had a good experience there and that her and I are very close, like, it really helped me to understand that they would fit in with my core beliefs as well. So I think that's important. And I think just trying to see if you can find those connections, like I said, LinkedIn, any social media websites as well, you can usually find some sort of connection. And you never know who might know someone or know an inside scoop about internships as well.
You mentioned social media, and we try and have students understand that is the first thing that an employer does is Google you or look for you on social media. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so I've had good experiences with being Googled, I think, but I don't think that everyone necessarily has that. I think it's important to understand what is out there that you're putting out there, and understand that you are as much of a brand as any other company is as well. So being able to make sure that there's things on your Facebook or your Instagram or any other social media site that you wouldn't want a potential employer to see, just mute it, or like just remove it from your social media sites for the time being, and focus it really on your brand as a whole. I think that's super important. I think it's important to Google yourself too, and if there's anything that comes up as kind of maybe not the best looking for you, like try to look at getting it taken down or get it removed or whatever it might be. But I think it is definitely something that people do. I can tell you, coming to Swarovski, they definitely did that and asked me questions about some of the things. Like one of the first things that pops up when you Google me is an NPR interview that I did when I was at college. She asked me all about it in the interview, and I was like, that was 10 years ago, but it's still out there. So I think it's definitely important to make sure you understand what the images that you are putting out there, because they are looking.
And let me shift back to business again and ask you, you know, there's a rumor out there that retail is dead and that stores are dead. So what does that mean to visual merchandising?
So I think this isn't a new thing. I think it's definitely it's been brought to life as a result of this year. But we've been having this discussion in the industry for. I can tell you with somewhat certainty, I don't think it's going to die. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think that if anything, we've seen that there is a need for, or a desire for people to want to be in stores, to want to be interacting, to want to be in an environment. What I think that you're going to see a shift with, especially from a VM and store design standpoint, is you're definitely going to see more of a shift into experiential. So customers don't want to just come to a white box and point at something and say, I want that necklace. They want it to be an experience. They want it to be something that you're coming into and you're able to interact and you're able to engage with the store design just as much as you are with the product. So I think there may be some shifts. Like, so this year we actually introduced a new store design for Swarovski, and we went from being all closed to being all open and like open to buy. So you can go in and you can touch and you can feel, and it's all suede and it's all like luxury materials. And now we're realizing you can't clean those materials and disinfect them really well. So now we have to shift our mindset into a different way of merchandising and redeveloping it. But the customer is still interested in touch and feel, but they want to know that it's been sanitized. They want to know that it's safe. And I think that's a reality of kind of the world go forward. I don't think that we're going to get away from in-store buying at all. I think there's more of a connection now that customers want to see how your in-store experience connects to your messaging online. So if a customer comes in the store and it doesn't represent the brand in the same way that your online shop does, or that your Instagram or your social media does, like if it's not conveying the same message, that's where we're having some kind of brand disconnects and some loss of loyalty to brands in that way. We also, it sounds kind of, I think, obvious, but in general, VM needs to continue to develop with the times and to continue to develop in technology. So having interactive displays and having the opportunity for especially right now, like one of the things that we're developing as well is a way for the customer to interact with a projection site mirror that will project the product onto them, so that it is less about the touch and feel, but it is still proportional to what they have, they want to put on, or whatever it might be. So we are adjusting in that way. And the customer wants to be able to interact with the store. What we're noticing is the customer wants to be able to interact with the store design, and it's a seamless transition from the store into online sales as well. So if I'm in a store and I see a product but the queue at the line is super long and I don't want to wait in it, I should be able to immediately say that product online on my phone, buy it, ship it to the store, ship it to my home. That's the next kind of phases of VM, is how to integrate from their phone to their in-store experience as well. So no, I don't think it's a dying industry. I think it's just going to change the way that we merchandise. I think we're going to see a lot less. I think we're going to go back to the mentality a few years ago where we were bigger shopping centers with more experiences in them. I think that's where we're going to start going back to. We're starting to see a trend that a lot of smaller strip malls, a lot of smaller malls in rural areas are starting to really struggle. I don't think that's totally because of COVID. I think it's partially just the shift in how the customer wants to shop now. They want to go back to having more experiential activities in the mall as well.
And we do have a question here. I think you touched on some of this. Is there an online aspect to visual merchandising?
Yeah, totally. I think the online aspect, in most companies, they work as different silos, right? Like your in-store experience is completely different than your online experience. CRM is part of what we call it in our company. So there's sometimes different kind of silos there. I think the trick is going to be how you marry the two. And a lot of that comes down to branding. Some of it comes down to, do you have a VM on site, on the online site as well? And there are some companies that do that. One of my really good friends worked for Anthropology, and they have a lot of crossover between their online presence and their in-store presence, and whatever they're featuring online is identical to what's being featured in store, etc. So it's important to kind of understand that, but not all companies are there yet. But they're getting there. They're getting better.
So do you have any control over the online visual merchandising? That is
not in our company. No, that's centrally held in our Austrian office. Sorry. So yeah, that's a little unfortunate, but we are getting better as well. We also, because we have so many different platforms for the brand, we are really working, and we'll see a huge shift in this in probably March and April of next year. You'll see a whole new branding for Swarovski that's coming out. And a lot of that is how we connect the dots for the customer between the in-store experience, the online experience, and even down to like the Amazon experience as well, because that's another way that a lot of customers are shopping, obviously, is through Amazon shops. So we have a Swarovski shop on Amazon, and our online presence, our in-store presence. How do you marry all of them together in one brand message? That's something that we are actually taking on from a global standpoint now.
I think from a branding standpoint, they all have to be in sync and saying the same message is basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So can you think of a presentation that you made for Swarovski that was most exciting to you? Was there any kind of presentation that you felt particularly proud of or connected to?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Disney to me a few years ago.
With the store design with Disney, is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Yeah, that was exciting. Our new store design, which is really cool. Well, I mean, it's obviously developing kind of nonstop. I opened the first one it's called Crystal Studio. So it's like, it's very crystallized, but more kind of contemporary. We brought in an Italian architect to actually work on it, and she helped to design the entire store design and really bring to life our messaging, which was really fun and exciting. And one of the cool things I think for me is, so doing store design as well, my partner is also an architect, and so kind of working with him on what he's seeing on the architecture side and then what I see on the store design side, and trying to marry them back together as well is really interesting. And so presenting that store design was really exciting this year. We launched it last year in November, but we had to present to a lot of stakeholders in early January and February. So that was exciting, that was fun, and really being able to kind of talk to all of the interactive screens and all the different technology that we brought into the store design was a lot of fun, and also bringing in those architectural moments and architectural lighting design and things like that. It was a lot of fun to bring that in.
That sounds great. We do have another question. Someone wants to know, what are some tips to help build a business / start a business if you don't have the money to start?
Tips to start a business or grow a business when you don't have the money to start. Well, I think a lot of that depends on what part of the industry you're going into as well, though, right? So what were you going to say? Sorry.
Right. Mariam, can you give us an idea of, there's someone that communicated this. Can you give us an idea of what kind of a business you want to start? I know this question came up with our last guest, and the guest said that you really should make your mistakes by working for someone first.
Yeah.
Before starting your own business.
Yeah, actually, I am gonna totally mess it up right now, but there is a famous Donna Karan quote that I used to know by heart, and it basically said, like, work at the ground level, work in a store, get to know how companies work, make the mistakes on their dime, and then use those mistakes to your advantage later in life. That is not verbatim what she said, but there is a good quote out there from her about that. But yes, that's definitely, I mean, there's a lot that you learn by mistake, and which also, something that I feel like I've had to accept and learn over the years as well is that mistakes are bound to happen. And if you make them, learn from them, and don't make them again. There may be a couple $100,000 mistake that you might have made by putting in the dimensions of light box posters wrong. It's okay, make mistakes, but make sure that you correct them and own up to them and own your mistake. Yeah, other than that, I feel like I would need to understand the industry a little bit more of what they're referring to.
Well, she did say merchandising, but I have a feeling that has to deal with retailing.
I would say. Yeah, I don't really have much input from that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But the idea is actually there are a lot of students, particularly in today's environment, that really want to go and start their own business. They're very entrepreneurial minded. And it's, it is very difficult, almost impossible, to start a business right out of college and have it be successful.
Yeah.
It is good to make your mistakes by working for someone else, obviously. And then you get a feel, you make connections, and, before you launch yourself.
Yeah,
make a lot of mistakes.
Like the cost of things, I think you don't always know the ins and outs of how much everything really costs to run a business. And I know even I think about that sometimes with, designing props or anything like that. Do we go with this price of a prop or do we go with this price of prop? Well, would I want to spend my money on that much more to get a different quality or a different style if I can get a similar quality for less expensive? Probably not. So use that same mentality. And I think it is important, to get to know how the ins and outs of how a company works and understand what all the costs are that are incurred, because there's a lot more than I think surface level you really understand until you're working in the ins and outs of the company.
So Mariam wants to start her own business, she's saying, since middle school. But she does plan on making her mistakes by working for someone else first. So that's good to hear.
Good.
Definitely good to hear. So let me just ask you, so we have prospective students here and we have current students. Some will be graduating this year. Is there one or two pieces of advice that you would give to students, let's just say, getting ready to enter the fashion industry in the next couple of years? So current students, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, from current students, I cannot stress the value of taking different courses at Albright and really understanding you are given so many opportunities to take different classes that you may not think are going to impact you in any type of way. And then you come to realize as you're out there in the real world, you're like, oh, well, I mean, I'm glad that I took that philosophy course, because now I'm sitting at dinner with the CEO and she's asking me a bunch of philosophy questions and I wouldn't have known if I didn't take that course, or, you know, whatever it might be. Okay, there's a million examples that you can use for that. But I think don't get caught up in, I have to just take courses that I know are going to impact me and be beneficial for my career, because you actually really never know whether the other things are really going to help you, and really embrace the well-rounded experience that you have there, and take advantage of the different when you have different speakers or when you have different events that you guys can go to, like, take advantage of it, because there is something in everything that you have an opportunity to see. There may be some source there that will help you in the future or may give you a better understanding of things. I mean, randomly, but like as an example, you know, building the floats at homecoming. All right, there's different techniques that we use at homecoming that, like, I've actually used in building props. Like, you never really know what you're going to use, but it's a good idea to kind of get out there and engage in different activities and help yourself have a more well-rounded experience. I think when it comes to, so that's on the activity side and the class schedule side. I think the other part of it is definitely interact with as many people, get your networking skills now, because that's going to help you even more as you're trying to get out into the real world there. And again, networking isn't just like, you know, who's going to 100% help me in my next step. Like, that also is getting to know different teachers and different professors in different fields of study and getting a point of view from them. And you know, I had a really great experience with Rich Schott when I was at Albright, and he really helped me to understand more of a business aspect of things, and he's been a great mentor as well. Like, there's so many different resources in the networking that you can make there, and you just never know when it's going to help you. And then as you're trying to get out into your internships and into your first jobs and everything, number one thing, like, don't get discouraged and don't beat yourself up and don't think, you know, oh, the first 3 people didn't give me a call back, so I suck. Like, that's not necessarily the instance out there. And especially if you're graduating in 2021, like, we're definitely in a different world than we were a few years ago. And I can tell you from experience of graduating in 2009 when we were in the recession, like, it's tough, but don't let it get you down, and keep working through it and just keep trying. Okay, just keep sending your resumes out, just keep applying. The only, you know, you're only going to get a yes if you try. If you don't try, it's a definite no. So it's worth giving it a shot, and it's worth connecting with people and take chances, and take chances in different fields that you might not even think are on your radar right now, and see if it's something you like. And if it's not, it's okay. Into something else, but get some experience. I mean, you know, if I was given an opportunity to do online visual merchandising, like Doreen said, like, I would probably do it. Like, yeah, let's try that. Let's see if we can do something different. I mean, every one of the companies that I work for are completely different brands, all right? Like Disney, Bath & Body Works, DKNY, Swarovski, like, such different product assortments, such different branding, but I've learned something really valuable from every single one of them, and I wouldn't have gotten from one to the other without taking a chance. And so, and put yourself out there. It's cool. You get rejected, brush your shoulders off. It's fine.
Great words, thanks. We do have one other question, and we have a couple of minutes left. How do you make your resume stand out when applying for a visual merchandising job?
So definitely, like I said, you want to look at the company's posting, because a lot of the language for what they're looking for is going to be there for you to begin with. So, you know, just as like minimal things, but if the posting says guest versus customer, use the word guest when you're conveying your message on your resume. If you don't have a ton of experience, that's okay too. Put what you're I know, like, and make sure they're very concise specialties. Don't, you know, you don't want to have 3 paragraphs of like, I'm really good at making things look pretty. Like that's not necessarily what they want to see. We want to see, what are your core abilities and what can you bring to the table? And I think specialties is a great way to say it. If you guys are interested in that, like make sure that you're putting out there, I am capable of increasing sales and productivity through store design and merchandising in efforts to make more money on the bottom line. Cool. Strategy. But like I said, use their language back at them because it makes them see that you're listening as well.
Thanks. So we need to wrap this up. I want to thank our admissions office. I want to thank the Center for the Arts. And most of all, I want to thank you, Kyle, for joining us tonight and all of the students who joined us tonight too. So I hope you learned something tonight. And Kyle, it was so wonderful seeing you. You can't imagine. Really good seeing you. And
nice
I'm glad
well.
you're enjoying what you're doing now. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much.